This was recorded on July 10th, 2020, and any changes after this date will not be reflected in the following webinar. Please reach out to your sales representative with any questions regarding recent updates. Hey everyone, welcome to the Citrix Networking Live demo. My name is Mac Thomas, and I'm a networking sales engineer based out of the Citrix headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I will be discussing with you all today about the Citrix ADC, the world's most advanced application delivery controller. So I'll go ahead and go over our agenda for the next hour. At a high level, here's what you can expect from today's demo. We want to make certain that we understand what you're interested in so that we can explore that more when we review specific use cases and cover what the Citrix ADC is. Then I'm going to provide you with some visibility into additional features and functionality of the Citrix ADC that differentiate us in the marketplace. And you can use these to reevaluate these differentiators and determine if they will help you in crafting a solution that will meet your business needs. After that, we'll take a quick look into an application delivery management demonstration by my colleague, Jimmy Tite. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the overall ADC market. On the right here, you can see Gartner's view of the overall application delivery controller market. You can notice that Citrix continues to be the visionary solution that allows our customers to execute consistently. A fun fact I like to brag about here is that the Citrix ADC has actually been positioned in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for 10 years straight, which is a true testament to our innovation. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the great features that have landed us where we are in the market today. So here I'll go ahead and give you an overview of what you're looking at, and then we can dive into specific use cases. From a very high level, the Citrix ADC enables IT to ensure business-critical apps are performing optimally, are highly available, and don't present any security risks either to the user or to the business. As you can see in this graphic, the Citrix ADC is at the center of it all, playing the role of the middleman between your users and their critical applications. And with its unified gateway functionality, the Citrix ADC provides a single URL for users to access their applications, regardless of whether they're hosted in Citrix virtual apps and desktops, SaaS applications, or mobile applications as well. All are available from a single pane of glass for your users. I hear this pain being brought up a lot from our customers, as users don't like having to memorize multiple URLs and logins to access the applications that they need. In addition, Citrix ADC also uses many authentication methods such as SAML, Radius, LDAP, and more to provide dual-factor authentication at the Citrix ADC level. And it utilizes your users' Active Directory credentials to single sign-on into their applications. For me personally, when I log in from home to access my apps, I have something along the lines of an RSA token for dual-factor, but we also have multi-factor authentication where you can add biometric authentications like retinal scans or thumbprints and more. So this is a really common use case for the healthcare industry specifically, as medical professionals often use smart card authentication where they scan their badge to access their applications and desktops. So now jumping into more specific features here, we're going to go ahead and look up some of the features provided by the Citrix ADC. And I will focus mostly on security, app availability, performance, and visibility. So security is a really hot topic right now, and Citrix ADC provides several different security features around identity and access, networking security, and further detail into application and data security. So first, we'll begin with network and data security. For this, we have our proxy, and rather than a full VPN tunnel into the internal network, Citrix ADC is actually the proxy, acting as the middleman between external users and the backend environment. This reverse proxy feature allows the Citrix ADC to detect network attacks such as TCP flooding, denial of service, etc., and drop the request before it hits your backend resource. And because Citrix ADC can open up traffic at such a granular level, IT can be given control over what comes in and what users have access to. This granular policy control allows you to enable things like blocking copy and paste or restricting external users from saving documents to the local machines. We also have our Layer 7 web application firewall. Today, we see about 86% of attacks coming at the application level, and our web app firewall protects web apps and sites from both known and unknown attacks. Our web app firewall solution has things like known signatures, surge protection, signature snores to determine common threats like denial of service attacks and SQL injections. It can also go into a learning mode to understand all of your normal application behaviors and block anything that's outside of that scope. So as you can see, the Citrix ADC has robust security features that can allow you to meet compliance requirements in all industries. The next category we'll discuss here is the Citrix ADC's ability to offload different workloads in your environment, such as SSL transactions, onto the Citrix ADC itself. So Citrix ADC takes the load off overburdened servers by handling the SSL processing as well as providing support for some advanced SSL ciphers that would normally be done by the server itself. The value here exists in the ability of the Citrix ADC to help reduce server costs by offloading that process directly onto the appliance. For example, in the past, I've seen instances of customers looking to invest in new hardware because their servers couldn't handle the requests coming through. With the Citrix ADC, they have the opportunity to save money by not buying additional servers and just offloading those SSL transactions to the ADC itself, rather than having to beef up any backend hardware. Now moving into app availability. And with that at its core, Citrix ADC is a load balancer. One of the differentiators of Citrix ADC from other competitors is the custom and built-in monitoring tools that not only check the health of the servers hosting the applications, but that the services are actually running for the applications as well. At a higher level, Citrix ADC can also intelligently load balance between your data centers with our GSLB functionality, or Global Server Load Balancing. Say we have two Citrix ADC appliances at two different sites, LA and New York for this example. They'll always be in communication with one another, and in the event of a disaster or site outage, the connections coming in will automatically fail over to the second Citrix ADC. That Citrix ADC will pick up exactly where the last one left off, and your business will continue to run seamlessly with minimal to no downtime. Another great app availability feature we have is optimal gateway routing. With optimal gateway routing, Citrix ADC can redirect traffic to a specific data center based on things like the user's location in order to send the user's app connection to the Citrix ADC that can provide the best performance for that user. So that kind of transitions into our next topic, which is performance. So there are a lot of features around caching, compression, and optimization built into the Citrix ADC. The Citrix ADC utilizes these features to accelerate application response times. TCP offloading and multiplexing makes use of every available connection. Compression and caching, as well as front-end optimization, improves the loading of web pages and makes the traffic more streamlined. For caching, if a file or video is constantly being accessed by your users, the Citrix ADC can actually cache that information on the appliance itself. For compression, we provide a variety of compression algorithms to ensure that we're taking up less and less bandwidth both externally and internally. Ultimately, this leads to a better user experience for your users, especially when they're using graphically intensive applications where that compression can really benefit you, because you're reducing the percentage of bandwidth that you're utilizing. The last feature I'll touch on is visibility. This graphic shows the different insights we can gain from Citrix ADC. All of the visibility on the Citrix ADC I'll go over in the demo section with Jimmy, my colleague that I mentioned before. But we're going to be providing a lot of insight into how your users are interacting with the applications and services that your IT department is providing for them. And we can also see how the applications are performing compared to what your users are used to. So that sums up most of the functionality that I wanted to cover. And now that we understand what the Citrix ADC is and what it does, we're going to go ahead and discuss some of the common use cases we see today. So first, for data center consolidation. We see a lot of appliance sprawl throughout organizations today. The powerful thing about Citrix ADC is that it can consolidate all of these different initiatives into a single box. This adds cost savings and simplifies the management of solutions. All in all, it is just easier to manage one device than to work with multiple devices and different vendors. Next, we have the ADC refresh. We also see many customers around the time of their ADC refresh looking to the Citrix ADC, because Citrix ADC provides the opportunity to consolidate multiple initiatives onto a single platform, as we just stated. For example, I had a customer last week whose web app firewalls were going end of life. Now they're looking at consolidating their web app firewall platform with their Citrix ADC. They're currently using Imperva for web app firewall, F5 for ADC, and Juniper for SD-WAN. But with the Citrix ADC, the customer had the ability to consolidate all of these capabilities into a single appliance. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about new application rollouts. When starting to use new applications, customers often start to look for ADC as well, in order to keep those applications highly available. For disaster recovery, our global server load balancing functionality, or GSLV, can help with this. The automatic failover from a primary data center to a secondary location in case of a natural disaster or an outage. This is something that the Citrix ADC does, and this is a huge use case for our customers. And this is in every vertical too. Obviously, some may be more important than others for uptime, like healthcare, who can't afford any downtime. For security and compliance, our Layer 7 web app firewall. A lot of the times, if our customers are hosting credit card information, social security numbers, credit card numbers themselves, or anything that needs to be PCI compliant, that's where our Layer 7 web app firewall allows you to become PCI compliant. So this is very big in the financial industry as well. Specifically for business continuity, one of the most common use cases we've been seeing lately is that our ADC is recently having to be used for customers' BCP strategies. Whether they are connecting to a backend Citrix environment or other resources, the ADC has been able to allow all the new work from home users to quickly connect and securely connect to their backend resources. And finally, for software-defined networking, today customers are looking to SDN as a way to simplify network management and save money. Businesses are automating the configuration management of their infrastructure, which can include servers, network service devices, and more, which can all be helped out with the Citrix ADC. So now we're going to go ahead and discuss the various platforms of our Citrix ADC and get more into our software first approach. So when deciding on an ADC for your company, you want to ensure that your investment today continues to be relevant in the future. That's certainly not an easy task when you look at how technology keeps advancing. As networks continue to move towards automation and software-defined implementations, Citrix ADC is truly a natural fit. Citrix is the only vendor that supports all ADC form factors, and Citrix ADC provides a common code base and feature set that can be deployed in physical, virtual, and containerized environments. So we'll start with the BLX. This is the lightweight bare metal software version of the Citrix ADC that runs as a Linux process on the hardware of your choice without any hypervisor or container overhead. Next is the CPX, and this is our newer platform that is our containerized virtual appliance. So we primarily see this a lot in DevOps situations where admins rely on the Citrix ADC CPX to secure new DevOps-enabled microservice applications. This is a really awesome value add to your company, as developers can front end new apps to test, and when you go to deploy that app into production using a VPX, for example, you won't need to retest for compatibility due to our consistent underlying code. So this leads us to the VPX, which is our virtualized appliance. This is really our bread and butter, and it can run on any hypervisor. You can see on the screen just some of the hypervisors that our VPX can run on. Next, you see our SDX, which I will get into more on the next slide. This is our physical hardware with multiple virtual instances running on the physical box. And lastly is the MPX, which is our physical appliance with a single instance. So now we're going to go ahead and dive deeper into our SDX. The Citrix ADC SDX is a key differentiator in the market. It is a unique platform that allows for isolation of virtual instances while all of those instances are connected to the same box. A significant advantage of the SDX is the ability to segment your network. It is common to find customers that want to separate their internal ADC from the DMZ for security purposes. Typically, they would have to purchase multiple instances of ADC to make this happen, which can quickly increase costs. So you can see with this color-coded breakdown, with the Citrix ADC SDX, you have completely isolated instances allocated to different security zones, and that's all in the same physical box. You can also consolidate existing solutions onto one single solution, which is a huge motivator for an IT admin. A great example comes from a customer I spoke to who's using F5 for load balancing and Imperva for web app firewall. Now they can do the same things from one device, which saves them money in the long run and reduces the amount of vendors that they have to work with. Additionally, the SDX allows each instance to consume resources on demand. This way, we can completely isolate resource consumption based on each instance and their resource intensity. So now we're going to go ahead and discuss our management and analytics tool, Citrix ADM. So as I mentioned before, my colleague Jimmy Tite will be covering ADM more during our demo portion soon, but I wanted to quickly talk about some of the valuable components of ADM. The first of which is that ADM is not only compatible with our Citrix ADC platforms, but it can also integrate with a variety of other products in not just the Citrix space, but also Cisco, VMware, and as well as a few others. As you can see in this slide, you can effectively manage and monitor multiple networking devices, which is a huge value add when looking to consolidate your devices into one analytics interface. So here are some of the many different features provided by ADM. So like I mentioned before, Jimmy will be covering most of these features during the demonstration, but from a high level, Citrix ADM shows everything going on inside your environment. Any HTTP or Citrix traffic you might have running through your Citrix ADC appliances. It can also show you bandwidth and latency, and even network issues at the application and the user level. It is a super robust and powerful tool for troubleshooting, providing overall health of the environment, and even managing the environment itself. Citrix ADM can be delivered as an on-prem server managed by the customer or as ADM service, where Citrix Cloud will host the ADM server, and then your IT team will be able to manage ADM from the cloud console. So the last thing I wanted to mention before we moved into the ADM demo is Citrix's new ADC pooled capacity licensing. Citrix has adopted a new licensing framework that compromises a common bandwidth and instance pool that is hosted on and served by the Citrix ADM, where ADM acts as the license server. From this common pool, each Citrix ADC instance in your data center, regardless of the platform, checks out one instance license and only as much bandwidth as it needs. The license file and the bandwidth are not bound to the instance. When the instance no longer requires these resources, it checks them back into the common pool, making the resources available to other instances that may need them. Overall, pooled capacity licensing is going to optimize the licenses and bandwidth used across all the ADC instances in your environment, and we will show what that looks like in the demo. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give everyone a few minutes because I know we've been covering a lot. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out with your sales representative so that they can help assist you with those. And with that, I will hand off to my colleague, Jimmy Tite, who will be showing you a demonstration of the Citrix ADM. So let's go ahead and have a look.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Mac. My name is Jimmy Tite. I'm a digital networking sales engineer, and we're going to go ahead and do a quick application delivery management demo for Citrix ADM. Before we log in here, ADM is going to provide that high-level overview that, Matt kind of touched on a little bit, but of all of our networking appliances throughout our environment. So whether it be ADCs, SD-WAN appliances, or, other networking devices throughout our environment, we're going to be able to see, high-level overview and be able to configure, manage, as well as see some analytics of what's going on through our network. ADM can be hosted both on-prem or also delivered as a service. So on an on-prem version, it's just an image we can spin up on a hypervisor, or like I said, be delivered, from the cloud as ADM as a service. So we'll go ahead and log on here. The first thing we're going to come to is our application overview page. So as we can see here, we can see with all these tiles here, all the different applications that are running throughout our environment. So all of those different applications that our ADC is front-ending. As you can see, some of these different applications have, bigger or smaller tiles than others, as well as are, color-coded. Those bigger tiles are just showing that there's more data and throughput going through those certain applications. And then that color coding is based on the application score, basically how well that app's operating. And we'll get in a little bit more to that as we kind of go through. If I just click on one of the applications here, we're going to be able to see some of the different things going on it. So like we can see that app score, this app was bright green because it has an app score of 100 out of 100. That app score is going to be based off of the application's responsiveness, vulnerability to threats, as well as, whether those systems on it are up and running and how those services are performing. If I scroll down here, I can see some of the key metrics going on with this application, response time, what that request looks like, and also that throughput. With it, I'm going to have all of these different graphs. And one thing you'll notice throughout this demonstration and with these graphs here is they're going to be very interactive. So you can hover over, get data, click into them, and should be very user friendly from a GUI standpoint. As I click through this application, the first thing we'll do is go ahead and click on the services here. So this is going to be, that load balancing VIP, load balancing that application. You can see, what method we're load balancing on, whether we have persistence from, a configuration perspective. From right here, I could go ahead and just disable that virtual server if I wanted to. We won't do that for now. Kind of moving forward here as well, I can go into configure. And directly from here, I can configure, this load balancing VIP, load balancing that application. And one of the benefits here is, right, I don't have to go into each individual ADC to, manage this VIP, but can do it right here and manage this VIP for all of our ADCs across the network. You'll notice too, if we have, any admins that are familiar with the Citrix ADC, that this GUI will look very familiar. And is, that same GUI you would normally see when configuring the ADC. Last thing we want to touch on in terms of just the application here is we can see the audit log as well. There's no data in it currently, but we can see those different changes and track, the different changes and configuration changes we've made on the application. So, if some things are going really well, we may want to roll those changes out to other load balancing VIPs or vice versa. If something caused the application to perform poorly, we may want to roll that change back. Moving forward here, and like I said, coming back to the dashboard before I move forward, and we can see, all of those different applications that we're front-ending, and just like we just clicked in for SAP, we can do that for each of these VIPs and each of these applications we're load balancing on the back end. Now we'll go ahead and move forward. So going into the network tab here, if I go ahead and click on instances, this is going to be a geo view of, all of the ADCs we have in this network. Unfortunately, this demo isn't properly working right now, but you'll be able to see, where all those ADCs are located. I can see, the number of instances I have, quick overview on certificates. And as I scroll down, can get, some quick graphs here on different events that have happened based on those different ADCs, as well as the different types of models and versions I have throughout my environment. If I click into, Citrix ADC here, these are going to be the ADCs I have throughout this environment. So these are all my VPXs. I also have, all of my form factors that I have throughout the environment. And what ADM does is when I go ahead and add an ADC here, the ADM is basically going to reach out through SSH and configure itself as an SMP collector, which is going to allow ADM to be able to pull, some of the data we see here. So I can see, like the uptime of that specific ADC. I can see what our usage looks like on both, from a memory perspective as well as CPU. Can see the model number and type. And because of that, consistent base code across all of our form factors, we're going to be able to see that information and be able to manage across all form factors directly through here. And as well, if I had some other appliances, whether it be, an SD-WAN appliance or other networking appliances configured in the environment. As I continue down here, going into the licensing, we just want to look at that, pooled capacity licensing that Mac touched upon in the presentation. This is kind of what that dashboard is going to look like, right? So I can see my different bandwidth pools with standard, advanced, and premium, and then you can also see my instance pool. And, as the ADC check out bandwidth and instance licenses, I'm going to be able to see, where those licenses are being allocated to, and the amount of usage that is being allocated to those different ADCs. Obviously, you can see, in this demo environment, we don't have a lot of usage going on right now. And that could potentially be a red flag. We would hope no one's pooled capacity licensing will ever look like this in a production environment, but you never know. So continuing on, going into SSL dashboard. This is personally one of my favorite parts of ADM, just because I think, like certificates are something that can often be forgot about, and, a certificate expiring or going bad can have, a huge impact on the environment. So through this SSL dashboard, we can track all of our certificates, make sure, if they are about to expire, that we renew them on time. Can also see, what the usage looks like on the different certificates, as well as like what kind of protocols and ciphers, as well as that key strength for all of our different certificates throughout the environment. The last thing in terms of networking that we want to look at here is just those different load balancing dips. So, when you have an ADC and especially multiple ADCs, there's not going to just be one load balancer, or it's not going to just be load balancing, one service or one application. There could be hundreds of load balancing VIPs. So being able to see, all of those different VIPs, how they're configured, we can see some different statistics here in terms of last state change, as well as the health of the services running on those VIPs, as well as, some of our content switching virtual servers, as well as like our GSLB virtual servers. And with those like GSLB virtual servers, for instance, if, one of those were to go down, which could be, huge impact on the environment, we can make sure that you can set up notifications. So you can get a notification that that server's gone down, whether it's through email, text message, and I think you can even get it through Slack. So just ways of making sure that environment is, constantly up and we're delivering those applications optimally is huge. We're now going to go into the analytics portion. So, the analytics portion here is where we're really going to be able to drill down and do a lot of our troubleshooting based on, the different user experiences, as well as, get data on how these different ADCs and capabilities are operating. We first look into HDX Insight here. This is going to provide that breakdown of, Citrix's proprietary ICA protocol. By front-ending, that ICA connection with the ADC and utilizing ADM, we can really break down that connection. And one thing as we get into this, as you'll notice through all these analytics tabs, is Citrix ADC is able to utilize its own database to provide historical context. So we could go all the way out to like months or a year. So, if users come in and say, this has been going on for weeks, you'll be able to see that historical data. So if you look into HCX Insight here, basically this is going to be, our overarching average for all of our users right now. I can see, what that ICA round trip times looks like, can break down the latency, see between the WAN as well as that data center latency, look at the bandwidth there. And, as things come up, I can click into an individual user, right? So let's say, Liam has been complaining that, his connection is super slow. If I go ahead and click into Liam, I can get data and drill down into his specific ICA connections. And I can see, wow, he has a full second of latency or round trip time. And you can see kind of, wow, looks like, a lot of that latency is coming at the data center level. And then, can start to drill down to like the different applications as well as the individual sessions that he's had in the past. And, kind of what that session looked like, what the individual round trip time and latency looked like for those individual sessions, and really start to get a good idea of, where the issues are coming from, as well as, if we scroll down again, with that ICA connection, we can even break it down to the individual channels. So see, where that bandwidth is being utilized on an individual channel basis, as well as, the agent that he's accessing on and the different transport types. So the HCX Insight, great tool in terms of, troubleshooting that user experience. The next is the Gateway Insight. So when looking at, the gateway, one of the really neat things with the ADC is the endpoint analysis scan that the ADC is able to perform before that user even, authenticates or types in their credentials. And, that scan can scan for different things, whether it be, like an updated antivirus or a certain operating system, or whether or not the endpoint is domain joined or not. And then we can deny those users. So if that antivirus isn't up to date, we can deny them. And right here in the Gateway Insight, we can see, why those users are getting, aren't being allowed in, and why they're failing that endpoint analysis. So we can see all those failures. We can scroll down here, see what ADC was at, the user that was trying to access. And then can even, if we go over, see, what that individual policy was. And hopefully, we'll name the policy something that maybe make a little more sense than pre-auth policy one. It looks like it was declining then because they're entering on a Mac operating system. The next is then with authentication. So going to be very similar here, but from that authentication standpoint. So after they pass the endpoint analysis scan, why is that authentication failure happening? You can, again, see that graph and interact with it, and then kind of scroll down here and drill down to the individual user and where it was coming at, whether it was that first factor, LDAP, or that second factor, radius authentication. Where the user was failing and why, whether it's just invalid credentials or maybe something bigger that's going on. And then finally, application launch here. So this is going to show, where those failures happened after our users passed the endpoint analysis. They're now authenticated into the environment. And now they're having application launch issues. Why is that happening and where is it happening at? Again, the ability to come down, see, it's just Notepad here, but how that user is accessing and why that failure is happening, and really get drilled down on a per user basis. Again, can scroll down as well, see, what that session looks like, what the operating system the user is accessing on, as well as, the browser, and then, see a graph of, what that user login activity looks like. We have, some other added insights here as well from an analytics perspective. If we go into like our security insights, this is going to be big for like our web app firewall and, how that protection is happening for some of our different web applications that we're delivering, and making sure that, those threat indexes and safety indexes are in a good spot to protect those different web applications and understand, where those threats are coming from, and what that looks like, as well as bot insight, where, we know bots are a huge issue now, whether it be, script kiddies or server farms or clip farms, I apologize, how those bots are operating, and then based upon those, signatures that we're utilizing, the ADC will go ahead and drop that traffic, and it will, if we do, the bots are detected and that traffic's dropped, it will report those incidents here, bot insights. That kind of wraps it up for the analytics portion. The last thing I wanted to show before we wrap up the demo here is the ability to provide role-based access to our admins here. So if I go into our user administration into roles, what we're able to do with ADM is provide role-based access to our admins. So if you have a team of 10 admins and you only want certain people to have access to certain areas of the environment that they work on and monitor, we can do that here. So providing that role-based access, so our admins have access to everything they need to do their job, but maybe not necessarily some of the things that they don't need access to, which really helps in defining those rules and streamlining our admin teams. In terms of the demo here, that kind of wraps it up for me. I know between the presentation and this demo, we covered a lot of information in a quick amount of time, but we would encourage all of you to reach out to your sales reps, and they'll get their sales engineers involved, and we can kind of continue this conversation around the Citrix ADC and around Citrix ADM to hopefully find that use case that works for your environment and can really benefit the way your team operates. So we appreciate everyone's time and hope to hear from you going forward. Thanks, and have a great rest of the day.